please. If we could all stand for a moment. Silence, thanks, Chief. And then we'll ask Mr. Thompson to lead us in the pledge.
Shall we pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Shall we call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Yes.
Mr. Lesby?
Here.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell?
Here.
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Here.
Mr. Showalter?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. We have a full house. Good. Each of you should have a copy of the minutes from our January 28th regularly scheduled meeting. If you'd like to take a moment to look those over for approval, or a motion for approval.
Motion, Mayor.
Second, Mayor.
I think Mr. Showalter may have beat you to the punch.
That's good.
fine.
You go, Mr. Showalter.
So was that a second, Connie?
Sure.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Minutes are approved. Each of you should also have a copy of the latest check register if you'd indicate you received that. Thank you. On the agenda, it is time for public comments. And in terms of the public comment sign-up sheet, no one is signed up, but would be happy if anyone from the audience would like to address the council, would be glad to hear from you.
Over here.
Oh, yes, ma'am, please. Come forward. Uh-huh.
Hello, my name is Amy Dews. I have been a resident of Georgetown for 25 years. This is the first time I've been to a council meeting.
Welcome.
Thank you. So what I would like to address and maybe ask some questions if allowable is about the creation of the new position. I know tonight's going to be the second reading for Chief Administrative Officer.
That's correct.
So I did some research and I saw within the pay grade that this is at the highest pay grade. Under the mayor, under the city clerk, I don't think they were involved, but this was at a pay grade actually higher than the police chief and the fire chief.
It is a grade 12. It is the highest grade in our personnel system. Yes, ma'am.
So I also noted that in 2017, there was a creation of a position, chief of administrative or, let me see,
Chief of Staff.
the chief of staff, which basically do all departments report to that chief of staff from a human resource level? Is that correct?
Oh, ma'am, the chief of staff designation was simply a designation and a title that I gave to the city attorney. It was not reflected by any change in the personnel ordinance or by any council action. It was simply a title and a set of responsibilities that I convert. If the CAO office is approved upon second reading tonight, that designation will disappear.
So that will no longer be there, but this is a +1. This is a creation of a new job tonight, if you pass it. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. It is adding a CAO position to the city's personnel ordinance.
So hypothetically, if that CAO position were filled internally, then you're going to backfill that position as well?
Yes, ma'am. Do you have a comment? Or
No, I guess my comment is that I see within the pay grade, it's pay grade 12, so it's an additional $100,000 to $150,000 that'll come out of the budget for administrative costs.
For more precisely, Ms. Hughes, it will be
Dues, it's dues.
$118,000.
Okay. I saw the salary range because I had went through the notes and printed that out.
Yes, ma'am.
And who currently is doing the work that this newly created position? Who's currently handling that workload?
That's being done by myself.
So Would it be like a vice mayor or a special assistant to the mayor?
It is an administrative, do you have a comment, Miss, please, if you'll make your
No,
comment. I'm not going to debate this with you.
No,
If you
I'm
have
just
a-
trying to
if you have a comment,
understand.
Please.
Is there an expanded role that's going to happen with this position? Is there a quantifiable return on investment for us to take another $118,000 for administrative oversight for our budget?
Yes, ma'am.
So, was there a quantifiable, I guess, did you have a quantifiable return on investment for designating the new title 2 years ago?
No, ma'am.
Were there expanded roles?
Yes, sir.
She's making a comment of 100 and some thousand. That's not an additional, we're giving a raise to this, but he's already drawn his salary. So we're not adding 100 and some thousand to his,
For the
to
balance,
the balance.
for the balance of this budget year, the budget amendment that you will hear tonight
Right.
will add $15,000 for the final quarter of this year with those salary adjustments. That is a total annual salary change of $60,000 between the two positions of Chief Administrative Officer and Miss Devin Golden being elevated to City Attorney.
So that's for the
those are the
final
numbers.
quarter of this year, for then beginning of fiscal year '20. What will it be?
$60,000 additional salary from what we are paying today. We are the fastest growing city in Kentucky. We are the largest city in Kentucky that has neither of the management positions of CAO or city manager. We are ready for this position in the city of Georgetown, and that is my position. The council will have a chance to vote on it. Do you have any other statements you'd like to make?
Nope, I think I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to come before the council? If not, let me move into mayor's comments. Not that you didn't hear enough of them today. I'm trying to be very brief. Each of you should have at your seat a copy of our budget schedule for this year. This is, of course, required by ordinance for us to give you this budget schedule and the dates by which we'll have our hearings and readings of the budget. So this is more for your information, but this will also be published in the local paper, I think, next issue.
Yes, actually, yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay. Good. Let's see. Also, at your packet tonight, each of you have received, at your seat tonight, each of you have received a packet from Wedco Health Department. Dr. Crystal Miller put this packet together so that the council could have an advance look at the data and syringe exchange programs that have been developed successfully in the surrounding communities. Dr. Crystal Miller, head of Wedco Health District, if we can get everything scheduled correctly, will be here on the 25th of this month to begin a presentation to the City Council concerning the City Council's consideration of the syringe exchange program that the fiscal court recently passed. Yes, ma'am.
I haven't looked through it. Does it have the ordinance that the fiscal court did pass?
If it doesn't, we will email it
Not
to
in
you.
here.
Doesn't?
Not in there, should be.
Okay, yes, I'd appreciate that. And then the next question I had, because I heard from some of the fiscal court members, do we pass it in an ordinance or in a resolution?
They passed it earlier when this issue was under consideration by the court. The fiscal court appointed some members, the council appointed some members, and we jointly worked out what some of this proposal would be. And we worked out what the needs assessment would look like. At that time, the committee, to meet some of the concerns of fiscal court members, who eventually never supported the program anyway, but we did it by ordinance. We recommended that it be done by ordinance, so the court and the council would have that greater sense of control.
So we will do ordinance.
And we will do it by ordinance as well.
Very good.
Dr. Miller will make her presentation more about the program and what she's worked with the fiscal court on. She can go through all of this data point by point, but we thought it helpful if we went ahead and gave it to you and you could begin to digest some of it. If you'll make a note to make sure we amend the.
Then will we have, will it be, at the next meeting, be considered a first reading?
No.
Okay.
It'll be Dr. Miller's presentation to us and our ability to discuss with her the ordinance that the fiscal court did.
Okay.
And hopefully then we proceed with consideration, but we'll do it slowly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's see, also under mayor's comments, we have a request from Saints Francis and St. John for a live Stations of the Cross. You remember we attempted this last year and weather has not been kind, but going to make another valiant stab at it this time.
I'll make a motion.
They did do it last year.
They did get it
They
done
did,
last
yeah,
year?
they walked up the street and
Yeah.
did it, yeah. It was
Good.
nice. We had a double rainbow.
Motion's been made.
Second.
And seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And that's all the mayor's comments. Item 7 on your agenda under city engineers, first reading of the encroachment ordinance that we've handed out to you some 1 or 2 meetings ago. And I think we're prepared to have first reading tonight. And then if any questions, I'm sure Mr. Hightower would be available to answer those for us. Sponsors are Mr. Thompson and Mr. Sung.
An ordinance repealing and replacing a section of the Georgetown Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Article 4, regarding encroachments into public and private easements and rights-of-way. Summary. 1. Repeals and replaces Chapter 15, Article 4 of the Georgetown Code of Ordinances, establishing the requirement to obtain a permit prior to making street cuts, setting a fee for said permit, requiring permittee to provide a construction and maintenance surety bond, and outlining the other responsibilities associated with holding the permit and conducting the work. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage of publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time February 11th, 2019.
Thank you. That'll constitute first reading. Again, any questions on that content, if you direct them to Mr. Hightower.
Can I ask a real quick question, and really might be more for Chase than anybody. And Chase, you may have addressed this at the last meeting. Was this something
Yeah, please
that,
come.
I feel like the water company, and we probably all do, they're going to be the ones that are probably impacted as much as anybody.
Yes, sir.
Any issues, concerns, support?
I mean, it will definitely be an item that we have to address in our annual budget, that we will need to put more money aside for restoration, because it will increase the amount of paved site restoration anytime we do a dig that's
Right.
in pavement. Right before I left Lexington at Water Quality, Lexington was doing the same thing. We were facing the same issue, but I think the bottom line is, when you've got beautiful new city streets and you're trying to make downtown look beautiful, and you allow us, we try to do a good job as it is, and I think
Yeah.
we do a good job, but we're not the only one out there. And when you allow us to cut up those streets with tiny little, it's an eyesore.
Yeah.
And so I as a utility representative, I support the encroachment ordinance, and it's just going to be a question that it's going to be another additional cost in our budget.
Right.
Well, you hit the nail on the head when you talk about us trying to keep the city and the streets beautiful. I mean, it's nothing worse than have a big old cutout and it's sunk down that far and so forth, so. Ordinance, I think, is a great ordinance.
So you all will just kind of plan on it. You'll adjust your budget accordingly based on past
And
experience.
it might be a thing that it'll take a few years to get the hang of it,
Yeah.
that we might come up short the first year. Hopefully, we can be right on,
Yeah.
and we're not over conservative and put aside too much, but it'll definitely be an increase.
Okay. All right, I appreciate it. I just wanted to hear, he and I had not talked, just something I was thinking about, who would be impacted the most? I'm thinking the water company, so.
Locally, it will be the water company.
Locally, it'd be the water company.
Again, I think our staff and our contractors already do a pretty good job. We try not to just make ugly patterns in the
Yeah.
pavement. We try to block them off and go street width, but
Yeah,
we can always do better.
okay.
That's good. Thanks, Chase. Any other questions? Let's see, if we move under city attorney, items A and B have to do with the Askew property annexation and zone change. We had indicated to you that if we had not received the signed consent form, we would not act on this item. We have not received that consent form, so we'd like to pass on items A and B until we receive that documentation. Item C, a municipal order authorizing a deed of easement, is a request from AT&T to put a small box for fiber connection
In the right of way and on Fire Station 2.
the right-of-way in front of Fire Station 2. We haven't done this before. It seems like a reasonable request. They've made a, what is it, $5,000? It's just kind of
A
a
minimal offer.
token amount of
The
money.
offer is, we'll bring you fiber. I mean, that's,
So I really don't have a way to evaluate this transaction. It seems like a reasonable request if it's facilitating fiber moving through the community.
We all need fiber.
We need more fiber. That's right.
More ways than one.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Motion has been made.
Just saying.
I'm in favor of fiber.
Fiber's a
That
good
was
thing.
wonderful. With that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
At least we can laugh.
Pardon? David? Item 9 on your agenda, under Human Resources, the second reading of an amendment to the Personnel Ordinance. Sponsors Mr. Lesby and Ms. Tackett. This is the Personnel Ordinance that creates two positions. One is the police officer to replace the police officer that we took away from active duty when we put him on as a school resource officer. So this makes the police department whole from our school safety move that we made earlier. And this is the change to the personnel ordinance that adds the position of chief administrative officer. Happy to discuss this. If we could have a motion and a second to get it on the floor.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Motion's been made and seconded. Would be glad to hear any council comment or discussion.
Well, Mayor, I'll give the comments. It's not so much for discussion because pretty much we had discussion last meeting. You kind of know where I stand on it. No big surprise. Nothing's changed since our last meeting, except I have heard from quite a few people. The paper's written about it in the paper, and people that are like the lady that was here, earlier, asking questions. Maybe some clarity is not about it, but anyway, one of the biggest issues is, and as I have said, it feels like you're putting your authority into someone else, which I know you do that anyway because that's what you do to run the city. I'm not supportive of the position. I'm not supportive of the position because I really feel like it was created just to keep to be able to give one of your key employees a raise to keep them in Georgetown. I also, from being in your position, I understand why you did that and why you wanted to do that. But I think your timing would have been better to wait. I understand the city's growing, but I think uses would have been better to have maybe had a project manager that you set aside to take care of some projects for you and things like that. Maybe the salary could have been a little bit less and had another direction. But I think most of the council is supportive of it, and it's going to pass. I have no doubt that it's going to pass. But it just reminds me of been around here maybe long enough that I remember history. And in the past, it wasn't created as a position, but the same thing happened. And it became a way of taking an executive authority away from the mayor at that time because they let it happen. And you said you're not going to do that, and I trust that. But it sets up bureaucracy without having the accountability to the people. And I really feel like the people in our community, how we're accustomed to doing it, when we elect the mayor to be that manager and to do that oversight and not to give it off to somebody else for those same duties and responsibilities. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I've said my piece, and I know the council is for it, and so there you go.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question, Mayor? And Karen, all due respect, I understand where you're coming from, and I'm not going to try to talk you out of it, into it, or anything, but the position you're talking about, what was the official capacity that you're referencing that you had the issue with?
The attorney.
Attorney, city attorney. And I understand that. And what someone could say is, we have a city attorney right now, you know what I mean? And I know where you're coming from. The same thing can happen no matter what the capacity is.
It can.
It can. And you know that better than most of us up here, because you've been there.
Yes.
And I know the mayor, he's laid out a lot of reasons to justify this, and I'm good with those reasons. And that's why I made the motion, why I support it. But I do want to point out the fact that things like you're concerned with can happen at different levels and different capacities, and things happen. We don't know exactly what the future holds. I mean, it's almost like a bit of a chess game, to be honest with you. You make a move, and you hope that it's the best move, but you really don't know where everything's going to play out in the future. And for me, this is absolutely the best move that I feel personally that we can make. And that's why I'm so confident in it, and that's why I supported it and made the motion. So I don't want to debate anybody on it. I'm just good with it. But I did want to ask that one question about specifically what position that you were referencing.
And I remember that.
You and I have been around here long enough that
Yeah.
we remember the history.
I remember that too.
Any other comments or questions? If not, shall I call the roll, please?
Should I read it first?
Oh, yeah, would you read it first?
An ordinance creating the position of Chief Administrative Officer and amending Section 2-111 of the Code of Ordinances to add the position of Chief Administrative Officer in General Government and to add one position of Police Officer. Summary. 1. Amend Section 2-11C of the Code of Ordinances, which sets forth the classifications, associated pay grades, and authorized positions for each department to add the position of Chief Administrative Officer, grade 12, within the General Administration Department, and to add one position of Police Officer 2 to the Police Department. Establishes new pay ranges for grades 4 through 11 and adds a pay range for grade 12. 2, creates the position of Chief Administrative Officer and defines the duties and minimum qualifications of the office. 3, provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective upon passage and publication. Full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time January 28, 2019, publicly read the second time February 11, 2019.
Thank you.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett.
Yes.
Mr. Stone.
Yes.
Mr. Showalter.
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames.
No.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Lesby.
Yes.
Mrs. Singer Erdley.
I abstain.
Thank you. That ordinance passes. The next item on the agenda relates to the ordinance, and it is an executive order appointing the Chief Administrative Officer. We've taken care with this executive order to make its effective date February the 16th, which will be after the date of publication, because this position isn't legally created until it's published. So this gets us past the point of being published, makes it effective on that date, which administratively makes sense because that's the next beginning pay period.
You need a motion on that, Mayor? Does it have to be read?
In fact, if it could be read, because I want everybody to know
Sure.
it rescinds the chief of staff, and
Gotcha.
so I want to make sure that's clear.
Effective February 16th, 2019, Andrew S. Hartley is hereby appointed as Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Georgetown. Executive Order 16007 regarding the Chief of Staff is hereby rescinded. All previous executive orders in conflict with this order are hereby rescinded. Pursuant to KRS 83A 0.80, this appointment requires the approval of the City Council.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you. Motion's been made. Is it?
Second.
And seconded, Mr. Thompson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I have to be opposed to be consistent.
That's fine.
Do I have to abstain to be consistent? Or- no, okay.
I don't think that.
We're learning here. Silly.
Okay, then the next executive order, similar form, is appointing Devin Golden as city attorney.
Effective February 16th, 2019, Devin E. Golden is hereby appointed as City Attorney for the City of Georgetown. All previous executive orders in conflict with this order are hereby rescinded. Pursuant to KRS 83A 080, this appointment requires the approval of the City Council.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval? Motion, Todd.
I'll second.
Second, Ms. Hurley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You want?
Congratulations. Maybe.
Don't blush.
I just have to disclose a little personal inside bet. We made it city council we have a staff meeting late in the afternoon, just to make sure I'm ready for council meeting. So we just made a little internal bet about who would get the most votes, Andrew or Devin.
Who won?
Devin.
There you go, Devin.
You know, I thought about voting no to be consistent, and I thought, well, no, that was that was position, so we need a city attorney, so there you go.
You have to take her out
We
to
had fun
lunch.
with it today.
Well, congratulations, both of you. Both you too, Andrew.
Congratulations to you too. Thank you all. I will, I'd like to say to the council that this is a big step,
Yes.
and I appreciate your confidence in letting us take this step, and I will pledge to use this position as responsibly as we can to depthen our management capacity and get more stuff done. Thank you.
Going on.
Under number 10, Finance, Stacy is with us tonight. We have first reading of a budget amendment ordinance. Sponsors are the Finance Committee, Ms. Tackett, Mr. Lesby.
Good evening. Tracy, do you want to read first or do you want me to explain first?
You explain.
Okay. I always include a memo with my budget amendments to try to explain all the changes. And there's lots of documents that go with it. But if you will look behind the memo in your packet is the budget amendment number 1 summary. And what we try to do is we try to save up all of our changes from the time we adopt the budget. So July 1 until now, until we've had a chance to look at our mid-year revenues and see how they're doing. Kind of gather it all up. We do a mid-year amendment. And then in June, we'll do a final budget amendment to catch up anything that has happened since between now and then. I try to break this down in between previously approved transactions. I've noted the municipal order numbers, ordinance numbers, resolution numbers where I've had them. So the majority of this is based on actions that council has already taken. So we'll focus a little bit on some of the new requests. So if you come under the general fund, under the new request, you can see that we are going to look at some security upgrades to a couple of buildings. We know we have pretty open access. We've applied a couple of times for grants for City Hall upgrades and have not received those. So we think it's time to go ahead and make some of those changes, such as key fobs for the building and such. The mayor may want to talk more about kind of the land purchase that we have in here. I don't know if you want to talk about that right now, but we've got some things coming up that we may want to expand, maybe some downtown parking in areas. So there's some things we're looking at for that.
There's a very specific property purchase that I'm discussing with the Finance Committee that we think would be beneficial for future parking. So we'll bring you more details about that, but we thought it smart to go ahead and budget for it since we know we'll be bringing it to you before.
The fire department has requested a motorized rescue boat. They've requested this for several budget cycles now. They attempted to get a grant this year. We told them that if they were not successful in the grant application, we would consider the purchase of the boat. So after consulting with the Finance Committee, we did go ahead and put that in here as their current rescue boat is in need of repairs. Code enforcement, as the mayor talked about a lot today at the State of the City. They're doing a lot of work for us, for Stamping Ground Sadieville. So we have included additional funds for them for abatement services. And you will see intergovernmental revenue from code enforcement. So it's not all just expense. We are showing that we'll be recouping some of those expenses from the other jurisdictions, estimating we're adding 62,000 additional abatement costs, and assuming that maybe half of that's in the city, and expecting that the others jurisdictions would pay the other half of that.
You recall we agreed to share the expenses of operating code enforcement, but when abatement happened in a jurisdiction, the jurisdiction was responsible for those costs. We think there's some reimbursement here from our other jurisdictions.
And this is you'll see, and I've talked to Tim Thompson about this, but this is a budget that we're all still kind of learning on. And so we make our best estimate at the beginning of the year, but we had no idea how much our activity would pick up throughout the year. So we are making an adjustment for that. Some additional security upgrades to the building at 125 West Clinton. We have Eddie had a request from Economic Development for some street light installation along Delaplane Road near the business park. So I have provided for that, since that is not one that we have developer deposits to take care of. The intergovernmental revenues for some of those expenses, and then you'll see transfers to other funds. Stormwater, we'll talk about those, and capital projects. And then the next one you'll see, I'm actually reducing the transfer to the business park fund because we did receive a $500,000 allocation from the state, which you all accepted a while back. So splitting that 50-50 saves the county $250,000, saves us $250,000. The next three, Municipal Road Aid Fund, LGEA Fund, and Drug Forfeiture Fund, those are simply updating the starting year balances. All of those funds had a balance higher than what I realized was going to be available when we developed the budget in May, so it's just adding that back to the expenses so that we can spend those additional funds. Those are all restricted funds that can only be spent for specific purposes. The grant fund is just a little bit of cleanup. Once we received our VOCA award in December, we received a little more money than we had originally budgeted for, and then we also have received a couple of grants that you all have accepted from the Office of Homeland Security for police and fire. So we're adding those in. And the DRMO, that is, it's not technically a grant, but the police department receives equipment from the military that's donated, and occasionally they give us permission to sell that. And when they do, we track it in the grant fund so that we can keep those funds separate for police purposes. The Environmental Services Fund, a couple of these are previously approved transactions. Everything that's changing here is related to stormwater. Clay Avenue and Derby Estates are previous projects. We've had a request. Eddie has come up with an estimate for a Maddox Street storm sewer repair. I believe that's been discussed at council meetings. And then right now we have $70,000 in for a potential phase 1 of a stormwater utility study. So I know that's coming to council later to look at. And then you'll see the transfer from the general fund to cover those costs, because our general fund 100% pays for stormwater right now. Cemetery fund, the sexton just had some request for operating. He had a backhoe or tractor go down. So we had a repair to that and then had some equipment rental that was unexpected, and has also requested an additional, I believe it was $15,000 in temporary help. We only have 2 employees out at the cemetery, and they rely on the temp service help to do a lot out there. And since we didn't do the full plan for the wall, we're doing the repair, we had some excess funds in the budget that I could transfer from that. And finally, Capital Projects Fund, Lemons Mill, that project just kind of bled over into this fiscal year, so just finishing that up. The radio system, we had budgeted, I think, around $8.9 million when we initially developed the budget. But once those bids finally came in, we saw what that was, and then contingency. So that $1.2 million on the radio is to add those additional funds from the bids and then the contingency. You've already approved a contract with Hazen and Sawyer for South Sewer project design, and then showing some of the other governmental contributions that will be coming in from GMWSS, the county, and Lexington Fayette that will be contributing to that project. So those positive numbers are revenues. The new request, we do have the East Main extended construction in here at $585,000. We have some pretty good indication that we will receive some offset of that expense from the state allocation. We're waiting to find out exactly what that number might be. We put it in the budget, so hopefully we will not be out the whole $585,000. And the City Hall architectural fees, we had budgeted money to do full architectural plans for City Hall. Due to the East Main coming up, we're, in this fiscal year at least, we're diverting those funds to that project. Of course, hopefully we'll bring that back to the table at some point. But any questions?
Thank you. So, that's first reading?
Oh, well, I'm going to read it. She just overread. I have to
She-
actually
she-
read it.
That should have been first reading.
Should have been.
First reading.
Let's go ahead and have first reading, and then if there are questions, ask them.
An ordinance amending the annual budget ordinance for fiscal year July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019. Summary. General fund prior year revenues are increased by $2,143,732.99. Intergovernmental revenue is increased by $220,791.95. General government expenses are increased by $195,319. Police expenses are increased by $35,174.59. Fire expenses are increased by $22,000. Dispatch expense are increased by $344,112.90. Code expenses are increased by $80,610. Public Works expenses are increased by $238,960. City engineer expenses are increased by $144,785. Interlocal expenses are increased by $15,000. Transfers out are increased by $1,288,563.45. Business Park Fund, intergovernmental revenues are increased $250,000. Transfers from other funds are decreased by $250,000. MAP funds, prior year revenues are increased by $923,315.99. Expenses are increased by $923,315.99. LGA fund, prior year revenues are increased by $50,252.86. Expenses are increased by $50,282.86. Drug fund, prior year revenues are increased by $7,475.67. State expenses are increased by $7,475.67. Grant fund, prior year revenues are increased by $5,753.21. Federal grant revenues are increased by $78,358.73. Police department expenses are increased by $57,111.94. Fire department expenses are increased by $27,000. Environmental Service Fund, transfer in are increased by $160,250. Stormwater expenses are increased by $160,250. Cemetery Operating Fund, cemetery operating expenses are increased by $27,000. Capital expenses are decreased by $27,000. Capital Projects Fund, prior year revenues are increased by $5,205.11. Intergovernmental revenues are increased by $1,043,463.11. Transfers in are increased by $1,378,313.45. Capital expenses are increased by $2,426,981.67. All ordinances or part of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. This ordinance shall take effect after its passage and publication according to the law. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time February 11th, 2019.
Thank you. We'll have second reading of this on the 25th. And any questions between now and then, if you let Stacy know, she can answer them for you. Good. Stacy, we also have a quarterly financial report.
Yes, I do. As always, I bring you every quarter, at the end of every quarter. This is especially for the new council members, this is a very detailed trial balance report. You can see every account, year-to-date spent, budget, what's left for every fund. I will not go through that in detail tonight, but if you have any questions at all about it, please let me know, and I'll be happy to answer those, just providing that for your information. But what we do want to go through each time, just to kind of keep an eye on how we're doing for the year, is our top revenue categories. So our biggest revenue is payroll tax, occupational license fees. And as you can see, I show 4 years of history in the current year. Currently, we've budgeted $12,800,000 anticipated revenue for the current fiscal year, and year-to-date through December, we have collected $5,322,676, which is about 42% of our budget. And it looks a little less than at this time last year, but as you can see, June last year was quite high, and July was a bit lower. That had to do with when the three pay period months happen. Any company that's on a bi-weekly pay period, I think had three payrolls in June and only the normal 2 in July. So hopefully after this next time, we'll see those pick back up a little bit more. December is actually an incomplete month. There's one more transfer left to be made from the Revenue Commission for December returns. So that will go up by exactly how much, I'm not sure. So. Net profits is our next one, and this one is our most unpredictable revenue account. We do our best to get a feel for what's going on in the community with our companies and the economics of it, but we budgeted $3.5 million. Currently, I'm showing revenue of $1,446,000. But the main thing I want to point out about this is the very first number you see under fiscal year 19, the $1,178,000. That relates to June of 18. If you look at June of 18, you'll see that it's a negative number. And what happens every year during our audit is the Revenue Commission gives me a number that says, as of June 30, 18, this list of companies has overpaid their taxes by this much money. So I reduce that year's revenue by that amount, and our hope is always to be able to recognize that revenue in the subsequent year, which is why in July of fiscal year 19, you see the $1,178,000. Those are the carry forward overpayments. So we'll have to see as the year goes on and returns come in if we'll be able to recognize all of that as revenue this year, or if those companies will still have a credit at the end of this year and it gets pushed forward. And I'm happy to sit down with any of you and talk to you in more detail if you want to understand how that process works. But due to our method of accounting, we do have to account for that in that manner rather than just the cash when it comes in. So we can see that. You can see currently we've collected, other than that, $267,866. That's the sum of the smaller numbers there. So we'll keep an eye on this one. We'll keep you updated if we see any changes. But we do anticipate possibly not reaching our budget for net profits this year. So we'll keep an eye on that as it goes through. The next 3, insurance premium tax collections. Due to the nature of when the returns are due, this shows 1 quarter. So 1 quarter at $703,171. And that is about 26% of our budget for 1 quarter. So you can see that we're right on track with that to probably hit around 2.8 million. So we should come in a little bit over budget for that revenue. Property tax collections. These we just show as we receive. We've currently collected through December $1,592,000. We budgeted $1.7 million. I did go in and look today. I didn't put it on the report because I cut this off at December. But for January and February, we've already collected $150,000. So we have already met and exceeded our budget for property taxes for this fiscal year. And alcoholic beverage regulatory fees. As you can see, we budgeted $980,000. For the first 2 quarters, we have collected $548,231. And that's at 56% of our budget. So both of those quarters outperformed last year by a little bit. So we just like to keep you up to date on what our biggest revenue categories are doing, because they're usually the ones that make or break us in a budget year. So they're the ones we want to keep an eye on.
Sounds good. Any questions for Stacy?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, item C under finance, a resolution approving a joint application for a Department for Local Government Energy Efficiency Grant. We applied for one of these grants last year. Cities involved, counties involved, school systems involved. Typically, we only bring you grant applications that require some financial match. This one does not require a financial match, but we'll have some labor involved in it. We use some of our own personnel for some of this. So we thought that was enough to bring this to you all to ask for your approval of a resolution approving us submitting this joint application for energy efficiency.
Motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second, Ms. Hurley. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor, quick question, maybe a little late, but what kind of things would they envision us using this possible money for?
Lights,
Yeah, they're gonna
mostly.
replace lights in multiple facilities with LED.
Could some of this money go towards new construction?
We'll check, but it's usually for retrofit of energy
Well,
efficiency.
Okay,
And there's,
like a total remodel retrofit?
Good question.
possibly.
You know where I'm
I know where
going.
you're going. We'll certainly ask.
Let's ask.
Gotta spend it somewhere.
And how much it might be, and
Yeah. I think that's probably gonna be the natural limitation, is these are smaller grants.
okay, that's all right.
But we'll find out for sure.
Okay.
All right, item, do we vote on that? We did.
We
We
did.
did.
I got there a little late, sorry.
He jumped in at the end.
Item 11 on your agenda is, police department has a number of surplus vehicles, and those are listed. We'll eventually start having fewer and fewer police vehicles to declare surplus, since we're now using the Enterprise Fleet Management Program.
And the Toyota fleet,
The Toyota fleet.
Right, don't forget that.
That's right.
So how many years you fight for that, David?
20-some.
Got a few.
We were on and off a few of those years.
But eventually, that lease program will end up being a roll-on, roll-off
Yeah.
situation. But now we still have some vehicles for surplus. As we always do, we'll check with our neighbors in Stamping Ground and Sadieville to see if they have a need for police cruisers or any vehicles that we might declare surplus. So is there a motion for approval?
Absolutely, motion.
Thank you.
Second.
And second. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That leaves us at item 12 on the agenda, council comments. Todd, can we start on your end tonight?
Sure. I have no great speech today, but other than that, nothing.
Thank you.
I'll second that. Yeah, it was a hard speech to put, I think, to put together, because there's so much to talk about, the needs and everything, and to highlight it and to, go into it. So, good job.
Thank you.
Good job. Done?
Done. Now it's Judge's turn.
Yeah.
Right. Excellent job, Mayor. The only thing I want to report is something I keep reporting, and it's new, it's a new occurrence, is there's significant gravel in the road at the intersection of Lemons Mill and the bypass. And I know that's a state, the bypass obviously, but I wasn't so sure about Lemons Mill.
Lemons Mill inside is ours.
It's outside. It's mostly on the outside.
Where there's no other construction.
But anyway, I mean, some of these rocks are as big as your fist.
Yeah, Lemons Mill outside is the county.
And
Lemons Mill
also,
inside is
Okay.
the city.
I'll just chime in because you got me thinking about roads, is, West Main Street by the apartments in Kentucky, part of the road there's kind of fallen off, where the white line is.
Yeah.
And it's, every time I drive by it, I make a mental note of it to bring
Where's
it
this?
up, 'cause
Intersection of Kentucky Avenue and West Main.
Yeah, West
Real steep
Main.
hill going over.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know if it's the trucks there or what, but it's starting to kind of crumble off, so.
That and it's also getting wet.
It is.
probably
all
some
the
of the
heavy
reason.
Well, that's what we're kind of fighting, I think, with the roads is all the moisture
Yeah.
and freezing, freezing warm, freezing warm, freezing warm, and that's what does it, so.
Yeah, the ground's so completely saturated.
Yeah, yeah.
Eddie, well, if you don't mind, take a look at that as well. Thank you. Anything else, Mark, or David?
No, sir.
Connie?
Good speech today. Looking forward to what's going to be coming up in the future, and that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll reiterate, enjoyed the speech. I don't know how you did it without seeing your PowerPoint, but.
I don't either.
I know.
Excellent deal.
He always, now Karen, he said, am I on the right screen?
I had a lot of help.
I had a lot of audience
Yes.
participation.
Do.
Thank you, Mark. Tammy?
Well, good, thanks.
All good. If there's nothing else come before the council, we will stand adjourned.
Hell.
Good meeting, guys.
Good one.